Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am showing you all my absolute luxury beauty favorites of all time. So this is something that I wanted to follow up with my 2023 beauty favorites so that you can see if some of my 2023 favorites are actually my absolute favorite luxury beauty products of all time. And I did do this get ready with me style. I figured I would just show you all the products in action because these are products I have talked about on my channel many times before. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I also want to know, do you want to see me do a video on my 2022 beauty favorites, but kind of follow up and show you or talk about if I'm still loving those products or what I think about those? Because I've seen a few people do them and I thought that would be maybe a little bit interesting. But if you want to see my absolute favorite luxury beauty products of all time, just keep watching. I'm going to start off with the eyes as always. I have already gone in and primed my eyes. I like to just use my Givenchy concealer as an eye primer. It's technically not an eye primer, it's a concealer, but I find that it works great for that use. I just like to use a concealer. I haven't found an eye primer that I really love yet. The Rare Beauty one is really nice, but I don't like that it only comes in one shade because it's a little bit too light for me. But I've gone ahead and primed my eyes and moving to eyeshadow. So my absolute favorite eyeshadow formula of all time. This was actually a little more challenging than I thought, and I'm still kind of debating. The two that I narrowed it down between was the Clé de Peau Quad that was recently reformulated and released. This is in the shade Beach Pebbles, and I absolutely love this. You guys saw me use this in my Best of 2023 video. And then the Surratt Quad. Now, I hesitated mentioning this one because this Surratt Quad I made myself. So you can get pre-filled eyeshadows from Surratt. The Beyond Beige palette is something that I would suggest starting out with because you can just buy all the shades in one palette and it's a beautiful neutral palette. The Beyond Beige palette has these two shades in it here, and then it just has a deeper brown and kind of like a shimmery champagne shade. I've actually gone through a full Beyond Beige palette, so this is a repurchase for me, except that I just created my own palette. So you have to buy the palette separately and then choose the eyeshadows, which I like because then you can choose all the eyeshadows that you want in your palette. Sometimes with pre-made palettes, there might be one or two shades that aren't our absolute favorite. So this way you can just choose any shade that speaks to you the most. So this is the shade Chamois. This is the shade Griege. This is the shade Cuivre, and this is the shade Truff. And I just really like this palette because it's my perfect neutral palette. And so picking an absolute favorite, I did decide to go with the Surratt. Not because the Clé de Peau is bad. Obviously, I love it, but I just feel like I haven't had the Clé de Peau one long enough to say it's my absolute favorite. I still feel like I need to experiment with it a little bit more. But the Surratt eyeshadow formula is just absolutely beautiful. So what I'm going to do is start out with the shade Chamois right here. And I'm just going to use a fluffy brush and I'm going to apply that all over the lid. And then I am going to blend it through the crease. Now what I really like about Surratt's eyeshadow formula is that it almost reminds me of the Tom Ford Wet to Dry eyeshadow formula. Kind of. It's not really that same creamy formula, but it does melt into the skin very similarly to that Tom Ford eyeshadow quad, which I absolutely love. So this is just such a unique formula because even though it's a powder and it applies like a powder eyeshadow, so you get that ease of application, it melts into the eyes like a cream eyeshadow would, which I just think is so unique for an eyeshadow formula. I'm going to next pick up the shade Griege and I'm going to apply that in the crease. What I really love about this formula as well is that it is incredibly buildable. So you can just start off with a small amount and get a little bit of color payoff, but you can really build these up to get a more intense look. I am someone that tends to like eyeshadows that are a little more light. So for me, just doing one layer is perfect, and I really love how these blend out. They are so easy to blend. If you are a beginner, these are the types of shadows that I would recommend for you. If you're someone with mature eyes, I definitely would recommend this formula to you as well because like I said, they kind of melt onto the skin on contact. Is such a good formula. I'm then going to take the shade Truff, this deepest shade, and I'm going to just line the lash line from outer corner inwards. I typically don't like eyeliners. I like a softer look, so a powder eyeshadow is perfect as an eyeliner for me. So this is just honestly my go-to all the time. So if you're looking just for some really great neutrals with a fantastic formula, this formula is truly like nothing else I have tried. It is such a good formula. If you've never tried it, you do have to try it out. It is really, really, really beautiful. It is definitely a luxury experience with how these eyeshadows blend onto the eyes. And yeah, can't recommend them enough. So that would be my number one pick for an eyeshadow palette. I had to include a one and done eyeshadow because that is just kind of my go-to. Typically, I will only wear kind of the matte eyeshadows if I'm going out or if I have plans or something. It's not something that I do on an everyday basis, but I would use a one and done eyeshadow more often. And my favorite one and done eyeshadows, I had to mention two because I have like a going out eyeshadow, so I'm definitely cheating in this video. And then I also have like an everyday sort of one and done shadow. So the Chantecaille Luminescent eye shade in the shade Lion. This is a holy grail product. You guys have heard me talk about this on and on. So I'm just going to apply it with this flat shader brush all over the eye. You can apply this with a brush or with fingers, but this is just such a gorgeous shadow. You can use these eyeshadows wet or dry. It is a wet to dry formula. But what's really special about them is how they look on the eye. So typically, I don't like very shimmery eyeshadows with a lot of intensity, but this one does have a lot of color payoff. It does have a lot of intensity. It is ultra pigmented, but it is so creamy and just beautiful on the eyes. And this does have a little bit of intermittent shimmer, but it's nothing that's chunky. You know, sometimes with those eyeshadows, you can feel the chunks of glitter in them. This isn't like that at all. It is definitely a very sophisticated, very elegant glitter. I don't even want to call it a glitter, a shimmer, I guess I should say. The sporadic shimmer particles are very reflective. They're very beautiful on the eyes and they don't look too overdone. Just my favorite for a special occasion. It's absolutely gorgeous. And if you use these shadows wet, you can get a little bit more intensity. They're a little bit more opaque and the color sort of deepens a little bit when you use them wet. So I like that they're transformative that way. You can use them wet or dry. And when you apply this eyeshadow just as a one and done, it looks like you've applied multiple different eyeshadows because it has so much dimension to it and it shifts different colors. So love that one. And then for an everyday, my favorite one and done is the Chantecaille Mermaid eye color in the shade Copper. I have used so much of this. This is basically, it almost is like a cream eyeshadow. I'm just going over top of that Lion shade to just add a little bit of lightness and brightness and a little bit more of a sheen to the eye look. So I really like this because it's like a cream to powder eyeshadow, similar to the Tom Ford wet and dry eyeshadow formula, like I kind of mentioned before. It does have a creamy quality to it, but it applies like a powder eyeshadow does. This does have a lot of intensity as well. But the difference between the Lion shade and this one here is that this offers just a bit more of a sheen. So you don't have any of those intermittent shimmer particles. There's none of those sporadic shimmer flecks. It's just a very smooth shimmer that is so gorgeous on the eye. And I just feel like this color is perfect for every day. The shade name is Copper, but it's not really a copper. I'd say it's like a bronzy taupey champagne. It's that perfect in between. This is something that my mom also really loves as well, so I think it would work beautifully for mature skin as well. So this is just my favorite one and dones, both of these from Chantecaille. And for the lower lash line, I'm going to take a little bit of this Cuivre shade, and then I'm just going to apply that to the lower lash line, starting from the outer corner, working inwards. And then I always like to connect it to the outer top lash line to make sure everything flows together. My absolute favorite mascara combination is using the Dior Lash. This is the Dior Maximizer 3D Triple Action Lash Primer, Serum, Volume, Curl, and Definition. So I love to use this as a lash primer underneath my mascara because I just find it gives my mascara even more volume, separation, and length. I just really like a lash primer. And my holy grail mascara, I did decide, is the YSL Lash Clash Mascara. Only because this comes in the shade brown, though. I really wish Gucci would release this mascara in the shade brown because I do prefer the formula of this Gucci, but I have to say that I prefer the color of the brown so much more so that I have been pretty much exclusively using this YSL Lash Clash. The formula isn't bad on this Lash Clash. I just prefer the Gucci one a little bit more. The YSL dries out a little bit faster, and I find that in the summer months it does smudge a tiny, tiny bit, but that's just my holy grail lash combo. Really, really love these two together. I think the performance and how it looks and how it wears is just beautiful. For my liquid illuminator, my absolute favorite liquid illuminator is this Gucci Illuminator de Beaute multi-use drops. So this only comes in one universal shade. You can see how much I've used of this. I love this formula, and I feel like it hasn't gotten enough love. Like, why isn't this product viral? I feel like it really should be for how much I love it. So I like to use it underneath makeup the best, kind of as a primer, I guess you could say. So I like to just distribute a little bit to the palm of my hand using this little drop formula. And then I like to just take it on a brush. This is a BK Beauty 203 brush. And I like to just specifically apply it to the highest points of my face. So I like to apply it to the tops of my cheekbones. And then I like to go above the brow a little bit. And sometimes I'll just connect it to meet the tops of the cheekbones. And then I also like to run a little bit just down the center of my nose. You can also, this type of product is very multi-use. So you could mix this into your foundation if you want to add a little bit of a sheen to your foundation. You could use it underneath your concealer as well as a primer. You could just use it as a primer all over the skin to give yourself a little bit of a glow. And if you are looking for a little bit of a glow, but you have oilier skin, this is a product I'd really recommend because this isn't like a hydrating liquid illuminator that doesn't dry down on the skin. This actually does dry down on the skin, which I absolutely love. And I just think that this formula is just so exceptional. I know the Westman Atelier drops came out this year and I like them, but I just prefer this formula, especially underneath makeup. It's really gorgeous. For foundation, this is a tough one because I have so many different foundations that I love specifically, and I feel like different times of the years call for different types of foundations because obviously in the summer months, sometimes you won't reach for the same foundations that you do in the winter months. But I tried to choose a foundation that was universally flattering throughout the entire year, that I absolutely love, that I use all the time, that I recommend all the time for any season. I was gonna pick the Clé de Peau, the foundation that was reformulated. I love this. This is actually my second that I purchased because I ran through my whole first one. But I hesitated because in the very deep summer months when it is so hot or when it is really humid, or say I was going traveling, I can't take that foundation because it could be just a little bit too glowy. They did reformulate it and the reformulation is definitely less glowy than the previous version, but I just feel like this foundation that I'm going to mention is a better all-rounder. So this is the Chanel Sublimage L'Essence de Teint. Love this foundation. I have the shade B40 and I have the shade B30 as well. I kind of mix them together to get my perfect match. But this foundation is just sublime. It is perfect. So I like to give it a good shake. And then I start out by pumping one pump to the palm of my hand. I'll go in with this Shiseido brush and pick up that product on my hand. And I'll just go ahead and apply it to the skin. I like this brush because it just distributes so much product onto my skin at once. So if I'm in a rush, this is really easy to apply. It's a little hard to get around your forehead though, especially because I do my brows before. But this foundation, this is my absolute favorite foundation because I love the formulation of this. It has a very serum-like texture. So it is like a skincare makeup hybrid, which I love. I prefer my foundations to have a little bit of skincare in them just because I like that multitasking, I guess. But I really love this formula because of how it looks on the skin. It is so seamless on the skin. It just melts right in. It looks like second skin, so it doesn't look like you're wearing a foundation, but your skin does look more perfected and more beautiful. But it is such an elegant, sophisticated foundation as well because it has a very natural finish to it with just this slight glow, but it looks so luxurious on the skin. That's the best way I could describe it. Like, this is the ultimate luxurious foundation. Your skin looks luxury when you wear this. I just love how it looks. It is the most gorgeous thing because the glow is so subtle and so beautiful, and it is so skin-like for a foundation, but it makes your skin look special as well. So this is the type of foundation that I like to use for special occasions. Like, I use this all throughout the winter months for the holiday season. And if you're not new to my channel, my favorite thing about foundations, or my favorite thing about products that I need in my products, is that it has to be a blurring foundation. So I want that soft focus effect where my skin looks a little bit filtered and blurred, and this foundation does that. It looks so blurred on the skin. The Sublimage L'Essence de Teint, this is the Sublimage Le Teint. This one in the jar, this is more mattifying on the skin. I don't find it's as blurring because it looks a little bit too heavy on my skin, but if you're someone with oilier skin, I think that that foundation might perform a little bit better than this one. So I feel like it's kind of the same product, but that one's just for oilier skin and it has a little bit more coverage. But on my skin, it can look a little bit heavy, which is why I prefer this one. Also, would you guys like to see me do a video on my 2022 favorites and seeing, like, kind of going over the products that I mentioned and seeing if they're still favorites? Because I've seen some people do that. I thought that sounded like a fun video, so let me know your thoughts on that one. My absolute favorite concealer is the Surratt Dewdrop Concealer. This is something I mentioned in my 2023 beauty favorites, and this has become my absolute favorite concealer. I just think that there's nothing else like this on the market. I don't like this doe foot applicator. I wish it was just a wand, kind of like the Givenchy one. However, I will put up with it because I love this formula so much. So I just put a little bit under my eyes here. And I love this formula because it's such a thin formula. It almost is serum-like. And because it's thin, it does have a little bit, it does have coverage as well to it. I would say it's like a medium buildable coverage. It's really good. And I am someone, my biggest kind of insecurity is my dark under eye circles. So I like having something that offers a little bit more coverage. But because the texture of this is so thin, or the formula is so thin, it sits on the under eyes so beautifully. It doesn't ever crease throughout the day. It doesn't get cakey throughout the day. You know how sometimes your concealer throughout the day can just look a little bit heavy? This never does that. It always just performs so beautifully. It wears amazing, never settles. It never looks heavy, like I said, never cakey. Even though it is more of that medium coverage concealer, it never looks heavy. It's just so good. And I don't require a corrector underneath this concealer because the coverage is so good. Absolutely love this. This is something that my mom, so Surratt actually, to disclose, they did send me this concealer. This is something I will absolutely repurchase though when I finish it. And they sent me 2 shades, so I gave one to my mom. And this is my mom's favorite concealer as well. She really loves it, and my mom is 65. So she loves this formula as well. I did do a video with my mom on her favorite products. Maybe I should bring her back to update it, but I can link that video down below if you're curious on my mom's favorite makeup products. But I do think we should do an updated one. I think that would be good. But absolutely love this formula. So if you have mature eyes, if you're the same age as me, I feel like this will work flawlessly. It is perfect. My absolute favorite cream blush is something that I just tried out this year, but it actually has been released for, I don't know how long. I want to say at least a year. It could be 2 years, but this is the Patrick Ta. This is the, it's very hard to see with this light, the Double Take Cream and Powder Blush in the shade She's Flushed. So I decided to try out this shade because I have just heard continuously people mention how good these are. And at first I thought they were a little bit hyped. I don't love the fact that there's a cream and a powder. I wish they were sold separately. And I still do. But this cream, like you can see how much I've used this cream. I have hit pan on this formula. I absolutely love it. This powder blush, it's not amazing, but it's not terrible either. This is something, if I were to go on vacation, I would bring this because I still think this powder blush is good, but is it my holy grail? No. But this cream blush is my holy grail, and because I love this cream blush formula so much, I don't mind that I am paying essentially for 2 products, even though I only really use the one more. Like when I use cream blush, I will just apply a different powder blush over top. Most of the time, I want to say. I still do use these together, but I just prefer other powder blushes. But besides the point, this cream blush formula, I'm taking a Sonia G mini base. I just like to dip in a few times and then I'll take off that excess on my hand. This formula I really like because this is a sheer cream blush. So a lot of the times cream blushes will be just super, super pigmented. And I mean, this is pigmented, but it has like this sheer quality to it. It's very, very beautiful. So it's not too pigmented where it feels scary to use or it feels like you can't blend it out. It blends beautifully. And the finish of this is very interesting. And I didn't think I would like it because it looks like a glossy finish. But it doesn't look glossy on the cheeks. It does kind of dry down onto the cheeks. And I just find it so easy to blend. I find the wearability on this really great as well for a cream blush that is kind of more of that balmy formula. It's so beautiful. And even though it looks like it has kind of a glossy finish, it doesn't enhance texture on the cheeks. It just looks so beautiful. I love it. And I really like this shade as well because This shade almost looks like the color that I would turn if it was really cold outside or if I was going for a walk. This is the sort of shade my cheeks go. It's really gorgeous, and I love this formula as well because it melts right into the skin, so it looks very skin-like. It just looks like you are blushing. Love, love, love this formulation. I'm not sure how it would wear if you are super oily skinned because, like I said, it does kind of have that balmy quality. So I would be very curious on your thoughts. So let me know if you have oily skin, what your thoughts are on this Patrick Ta blush. But then I always go over the edges with a beauty blender just because that's what I like to do. Now I know Patrick Ta states that you do the powder first and then put the cream blush over top. I have tried that and I don't love it because I feel like my skin, if I apply a cream blush, or if I apply a powder blush first and then apply a cream over top, I find that my skin looks more textured. From far away, it looks good, but up close, when I'm examining my face, and especially in natural light, I just think that it looks more textured on the cheeks, and it does look kind of heavy because you've just layered products. So that's not my favorite technique. I know that he really likes that. Maybe it works better if you have oilier skin, but on my dry skin, that technique absolutely does not work. It just looks like I kind of have heavy makeup on, but you can try that out for yourself because obviously everyone's skin is different and it might work really well for you. I've been kind of doing my makeup in a little bit of a different order. So I've been doing my lipstick before face products because I feel like when I have my lips done, that means that I can assess how much blush or how much color I need on my cheeks. So that's just what I've been doing lately. My absolute favorite lipstick of all time is this Merit Signature Lightweight Lipstick in the shade Baby. I'm sure that's not a surprise. And I actually have not been using lip liner at all recently, so I can't really say I have a favorite. The Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk is probably my #1, but I just have not been into lip liner lately, and I also have not been getting lip filler. I think it's been 3 years since I got it because, I don't know, I just haven't been into it. I feel like my lips look fine and just haven't been lining my lips, but I love this formulation because it is lightweight, just like the name suggests, and it has like this waxy formula to it. It almost feels a bit balmy. And so when you apply it onto the lips, it just kind of glides right on. It kind of melts on contact. It feels a little bit like a thicker formula, but even though it feels like a thicker formula, it kind of melts onto the lips. Therefore, it feels very lightweight. It gives not a crazy ton of color payoff. I'd say it's like light pigmentation, but you can apply another layer and it will build up. I wouldn't say it builds up ever to full coverage, but it just gives you a nice tint on your lips. I just feel like this formula is very flattering. My lips just feel very comfortable. My lips always feel better once I've applied this formulation as well. And I just feel like this color is perfect for me. And then my absolute favorite lip gloss is actually this Too Faced Hangover RX Pillow Talk Lip Treatment. It's not technically luxury, but I love this formula because this formulation, this lip gloss is so lightweight and it just feels so comfortable, and I can reach for this for any time. So I like to use it before bed. I like to use it when I wake up. I like to apply it over my lipsticks. I like to just wear it on its own. So I feel like it's just so universal that way. This is my absolute favorite lip gloss. And then moving on to the cheeks, I wonder if this will be a surprise to any of you, but my absolute favorite blush is this Valentino blush. So I have 2 of them here. This is the Valentino Dual Use Blush and Shadow. I have the shade 9 Poudre, which is a very beautiful neutral color. And then I also have the shade 2, which is called Very Rose, which is a more beautiful pop of color that I like to reach for in the spring and summer, but also I feel like this is kind of a wintry pink as well. So it's kind of something I use all year round. My favorite way to use these has actually been to mix together. But what I love about this formulation is the formula. It's so unique. It almost feels like a creamy powder. So very similar to, like I mentioned, the Tom Ford Wet and Dry eyeshadow formula. It has that same kind of texture to it where it feels just like a very creamy powder. So the great benefit to these powders is that it applies like a powder product. So you get that ease of application, like I've kind of mentioned before, but it melts onto the skin. When it comes into contact with the skin, after about 10 minutes, you'll just see it starts to melt into the cheeks so that it doesn't look like a powder product is sitting on top of your cheeks. It looks like it's just part of your cheeks and that it's melted right in. Kind of behaves like a cream product would, similar to those Surratt eyeshadows. These are the types of formulas that I just look for in my complexion products. So what I like to do is I will go back and forth. I like to take this Poudre shade first, then this, then just go back and forth like that. I always tap off the excess. I always go in with a little bit of product first, very gently, very lightly, and you can always build up, but you can't really take away product. So, and I do like my makeup to look very natural in person too, so I'm always going in with just a little bit of product at a time so that I can get the most natural result where my skin just looks like my skin but better. It just looks like my complexion is enhanced. It's just a little bit more beautiful from where I started from at the beginning. So I have been doing my cheeks first, kind of my blush first, just so I can get that color. And again, I can dictate how much color I want on the cheeks because I've applied my lipstick already. And then I'll go in with my bronzer because I feel like the blush kind of gives me a little bit of sculpting so that I don't require as much bronzer on my cheeks. Sometimes I'll go in with maybe a little bit too much bronzer initially. That's just been what I've been into now, but I'll probably change it. So my absolute favorite bronzer is the Hermès Plein Air in the shade O2 Atlas. This is the Healthy Glow Mineral Powder. This was my best of 2023, but this has really become my absolute favorite bronzer. I use it all the time, and I really like this bronzer because it is so natural. This is just basically like a powder that is so similar to my skin tone, just a little bit deeper. So I just feel like it gives me the most natural tan. I'm trying to find another bronzer here. Like I absolutely love this Sisley one. They're kind of similar, but if you can tell, this is a little bit darker and a little bit warmer. So this one, I hate to say it's a more detectable bronzer, but I guess because there's a little bit of that contrast between this and my skin tone, it does look a little bit more unnatural. I don't know, this melts into the skin beautifully, so it doesn't really. But I just feel like this bronzer gives me the most natural, my skin has a little bit of color versus like it looking like a bronzer on your skin. So again, I like to pick this up. This is a Sonia G Niji Pro. Really like this brush for bronzer. I'll pick it up. This is a dense brush, so you don't need to pick up or you don't need to dip into your bronzer as much. Always tapping off that excess on the back of my hand to ensure that I get a sheer amount to start out with. And I like to start off on my forehead. So I'm always tapping in my brush like this because I don't want to buff because then that will disrupt the product underneath. And then you can get coverage that's removed. You can get dry patches. So I just like to kind of bounce it into the skin. And then I'll kind of go over the cheeks a little bit, but I try not to put bronzer there because I already have that blush. I'll just go over the nose and a little bit on my chin. But I love this formulation because it looks so skin-like. The formula of this is really nice as well. It's a very silky bronzer. When you feel your finger across it, it's just such a silky smooth formulation. It's a very buttery bronzer, extremely finely milled. The pigmentation isn't very, like it's not a high pigmented product. So I like that as well because I can just be more sheer with my application and it looks very natural on the skin like I stated. Just a beautiful formula. It is more on the matte side, I would say. It has an ever so soft sheen, but it's more on the matte side. You can't see any shimmer or anything like that, but I just think this formula is just perfect. And I mean, that packaging is beautiful too, so I love this. I want to try out the blushes because I actually haven't tried them out yet. And my absolute favorite highlighters, this is kind of a newcomer. So this is the Peau, the Luminizing Face Enhancer in the shade, I think it's the shade number 202 Golden Galaxy. So I actually just recently picked this up when Peau had their Boxing Day sale. However, I had the formula, the shade number 22 Shooting Stars before, which is a little bit more of a bronzier tone. I really like this shade for my skin tone. It works a little bit better. I'm just going to, this is the other shade, the Shooting Stars shade. And you can see it's a little bit bronzier. So I actually think this looks beautiful all year round, but this shade just works a little bit better for me. I can use this on the skin and it's very beautiful, but if it's like, if I don't have any tan on, then I can't use that because my skin tone is just a little bit too light. But this is beautiful. It's the most perfect champagne with a little bit of gold. This is a really interesting powder. It's quite a powdery powder, but it's so finely milled and it gives the most gorgeous sheen on the skin. Your skin just looks like it's glowy and glass-like and so flawless and beautiful. It does not emphasize texture. The thing about this product, though, I will say, is that there is an overspray to start out with. So you have an overspray of glitter. What I did is I literally took my fingers. You can see it kind of looks like a mess now. I just took my fingers and went all over like this to remove the glitter top spray because I don't like glitter in my highlighter. I don't like when you can see shimmer particles sitting on the skin. And because of that top coat, you can see the shimmer particles on your skin. But once you remove the top coat and you get through to the actual product, you can't detect those shimmer particles. I hope that makes sense. But this is beautiful. I like to use this little blending brush. This is from Wayne Goss. It's the number 17. Don't know if it's available, but I like to use an eye brush on my cheeks because I want my highlighters in a very specific area just so you can not really detect them. So I like to apply it to the tops of my cheekbones. This is definitely glowier than their previous version of this formulation. So if you like a more glowy highlighter, this is for you. But it is a very, I guess, a more skin-like highlighter because, like I said, you don't have those detectable shimmer particles, but it is more glowy than like that Gucci illuminator that I was using. So this isn't something maybe I would use on an everyday basis because I'm not someone that wears highlighter all the time. But this is the best powder highlighter. It is so gorgeous. It blends into the skin beautifully, doesn't sit on top, isn't too glowy that you can see it from space, and I just love that sheen that it adds to the skin. It's beautiful. So I like to really, I also am going down the center of the nose a little bit, and I really like to just blend this into the skin. I feel like it looks its best when you really blend in those edges. So to get that really kind of blended in look, my favorite glowy blurring powder is this Chantecaille Lotus Perfect Blur Glow Powder. I've hit pan. I bought a backup of this because this is a limited edition powder that was released in the 2022 holiday collection. Absolutely gorgeous. This powder is beautiful. It's a baked powder, so it's very finely milled. You don't get like a lot of powder kick up with this product, but I like to take it on this Sony G buffing brush. I feel like this brush is a must-have for this product. You pick it up, so you pick up quite a decent amount, and I take off that excess product. This powder works beautifully when you buff it into the skin, so I like to just run over the edges. I like to go over top of that highlighter so that I'm also buffing in that highlighter further into the skin so that it looks even more skin-like. And what I am doing here is I'm also going over the edges, so I'm going over top where I've applied the bronzer, the blush, and the highlighter, so that everything looks very seamless and blended into each other instead of it just being like layers of makeup on top of your skin, like the blush, the highlighter, and the bronzer, and you can see those distinct lines where you've applied product. This actually blends things in more seamlessly so that it actually looks more skin-like. And this powder is beautiful because it's a blur powder, but it has a bit of glow to it. And normally glowy powders, they emphasize texture, but this doesn't. This actually blurs the skin. And it just looks more natural when you apply this powder, even though it seems counterintuitive, like adding a powder looks more natural, but it does. It makes your makeup look more seamless and way more natural in person, I promise. This powder is so good. This is limited edition. If you haven't tried it out, I've seen this on sale. Get your hands on it. Please try it out because it's so, so good. And last, but certainly not least, we have my absolute favorite powder. So I do want to just mention something because a lot of people ask me about my thoughts of the Givenchy powder. And I had that Givenchy powder. I went through it, the Prisme Libre loose powder in the shade, I think it was Ball Rosé. The thing I don't like about it is that you can see shimmer particles. So when you can't really see them, I want to say like indoors, like, I don't know, like in the office or anything like that. But when you get out in natural daylight or when you're really close to someone, you can see shimmer particles sitting on your skin from the Givenchy powder. And I just don't like that. I do think that it does add a blurred effect, but I really just don't like that you can see the shimmer particles sitting on the skin. So I don't love that powder. I just wish they would remove those shimmer particles. So I just want to say that because a lot of people always ask me in my videos, oh, what do you think of the Givenchy powder in comparison? But my number one powder of all time is the Clé de Peau Refining Pressed Powder. This is just a translucent shade. I am getting a little bit nervous because it's been out of stock in Canada for so long, so I'm really scared they're going to discontinue it. Really hope they're not. This is my absolute favorite powder of all time. It is so perfect. I love this because it is so lightweight on the skin. It adds just a veil of, I guess I want to say mattifying to your skin. So it just mattifies the skin. But what it does, the best thing about this powder is that it blurs the skin so amazingly. This is the best blurring powder that I have ever found, and it blurs the skin without adding coverage and without adding color to your skin. A lot of blur powders are heavier powders and they have a little bit of color to them, so they actually add coverage to your skin. but how my skin looks right now, I just want to have it remain this way, but I want my skin to look more blurred, and I want to mattify some areas, and this is what this powder does. It is truly the best. So I like to take a little bit of this powder. This is a Wayne Goss O2 brush. I have to find another brush to replace this because I don't believe this is in stock, and I just like to go in the center of my face where I either have pores or where I will get a little bit of glow to my skin, and I don't touch any other areas, but this truly blurs the skin like nothing else. It is amazing, the best powder of all time. But that is everything for my absolute favorite luxury makeup of all time. These are my holy grails, my favorites. Of course, things do change when like the seasons change, so I'm sure maybe I'll do this video every 6 months so that you guys can see like my favorites in the summer, and I feel like this is winter, so sometimes I'm like, this is my absolute favorite, but then in the summer it changes. You know how our preferences change. But I would love to hear some of your absolute favorite products. Maybe give me like a 3 to 5 list. I absolutely love hearing from you. And I will be picking up those RMS blushes because so many of you have said those are your holy grails and I need to try them out. So I will be picking those up. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you like it, and I'll see you in my next video.